Shugs.
Should I do? I'll sing into this mic.
I love you! Yeah, we all love you! Nice guitar strap!
Thank you so much. I'd really like to play. I'm very excited because the movie's now out and I can perform music from it. From the movie called Drift Away.
I'm gonna cry already. I told you there'd be crying.
Is it coming through?
Yes.
Here in the garden, let's play a game. I'll show you how it's done. Here in the garden, stand very still. This'll be so much fun. And then she smiled, that's what I'm after. The smile in her eyes, the sound of her laughter. Happy to listen, happy to play, happily watching her drift. Of years go by, happily wondering night after night, is this how this works? Am I doing it right? Happy to listen, happy to stay, happily watching her drift away. You keep on turning pages. People who don't care about you. And still it takes you ages to see that no one's there, see that no one's there, see that no one's there. Everyone's gone on without you. Finally something, finally news about how the story ends. She doesn't exist now, survived by her son and all of her brand new friends. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that cool? And isn't that cruel? And aren't I a fool to have happily listen, happy to stay, happily watching her drift.
How does she do this?
Thank you so much. How was the balance on that?
Crying already. What the hell?
Thank you.
I almost cried!
I got a bunch of audience questions on note cards before, and I picked a few that I really loved. So I'd love to answer your questions.
Oh my God.
The first one was, what advice do you have to young artists who are struggling to find their creative voice? I'd also like to say thank you to everyone who wrote questions about process and advice to young artists. I love to answer questions like that. And for this, and for the many questions like it, I think the best advice I ever got, and the best advice I could give about finding your voice as an artist, is to just make as much stuff as possible, as soon as possible. The more material you're generating, the more you can look at what you're making and decide if you do or don't like it, and if it's feeling honest. But until you start creating material, you won't know what you need to work on. And to this day, whenever I'm making work, even when I'm working with my team at work, it's because we're constantly generating stuff in order to talk about it and figure out what is and isn't working, that we're able to move forward and grow as artists. So as soon as possible, if you'd like to pursue art, just start. Just start right away. And then if you have that impulse, like if you don't like the work you're making, know that that's a really good reaction, because it means that you're trying to figure out what you want to improve about your work. That's very healthy. So embrace that impulse too. This question is from Gabby. Do you ever get nervous anticipating or during a pitch? And how do you deal with those feelings? The answer is yes. I always get very nervous when I'm pitching. I'm a fairly introverted person, so doing the whole song and dance presentation part of my job is pretty difficult for me. Oh, thanks. But I really care about cartoons, so often I feel like I'm doing the pitching on behalf of the characters themselves, because if I can sell the idea with them in it, then that means I get to protect them and continue their story. Pitching the movie was...
Seriously, stop.
Pitching the movie was really challenging, and it was one of the first times that I was pitching. I pitched the full. I'm pee popping like crazy. Pitching the whole storyboard again, which I hadn't done for a while. I'd been in production. Early on, I would pitch boards to the network, and I ended up pitching the whole movie. But I really loved Spinell, and I really wanted to explain who she was and really pitch her accurately so that I could get everybody on board. And that's what kept me going, was trying to protect the story and this character. So outside of the show, what do you like to work on? And do you still do art or music for pleasure? The answer is yes. Actually, I've been really enjoying guitar. I started playing guitar 2 years ago when I had written the music for the movie. I worked with a lot of collaborators, and I was at the point where I couldn't actually perform the songs I was writing because a lot of them were written on guitar. And taking guitar lessons and studying guitar has been a huge calming force in my life. I've been really enjoying studying it. Thank you. Let's see. Is there anything you wanted to add to the show that you think you didn't have time to add? This is a very good question. There were many things that I didn't have time to add to the original Steven Universe series because we were very tight toward the end, that I now had a chance to put into Steven Universe Future, so please watch Steven Universe Future. So after graduating SVA, what was your path to eventually working at Cartoon Network? This is a great question. And are any of you at SVA? This is great. Anyone else here in art school in general? All right. Yes, that's fantastic. After I graduated SVA, I interned at a bunch of I interned on Venture Brothers. I interned at Augenblick. I did a bunch of internships, but never got hired. And I ended up testing for Adventure Time. They have a storyboard test, which is you get a little chunk of an outline, and then you storyboard it and write it, because on board-driven shows, the boarders also do the writing, so they have to really see if you're a good fit. So I took that storyboard test, and I didn't get the storyboarding job, but I did get a revisionist job. And what's great about being a revisionist is your job is basically to have your boss tell you, like, this is what doesn't work about these two panels, like, you know, or take the gloves off this character because they don't have gloves in the previous scene. Like, it's like you're fixing problems. And as someone who was interested in storyboarding, starting as a revisionist was great because I got a crash course in everything that doesn't work because I was the person that had to fix it. It's also really helpful for me now, show running, to have worked as a revisionist and to have worked as an intern, as a revisionist, as a storyboard artist and writer, because now when I direct my team, I understand what it's like to be at all of those points in production. So anybody who wants to make a show, run a show, it's so helpful to work on one in as many different roles as possible, because then you'll know how to direct your team. I really recommend starting wherever you can and exploring as many jobs as possible on a team, especially if it's a show you love, which Adventure Time really was for me. This is a heavy one. Is it true you were willing to quit at CN to try and get Ruby and Sapphire's wedding episode made? This is a complicated answer, and I would like to set the record straight on this. In no world would I ever quit Steven. I care about Steven Universe too much, and I never said that I would quit. The situation that I was in was that a lot of our funding was coming from international, and so because I was pitching material that they would not be able to air in some of the most conservative countries in the world, I was getting notes from those countries, and I was also getting funding from those countries. So what they told me is, if you're going to do this, you may not necessarily be able to continue making the show because that funding will no longer exist. So I had to make the choice: do I let the show cease to exist but do this, or do I not do this and the show might run longer? And I chose to tell the truth, and we survived. So that's what my 9-year-old loves drawing and wants to be an animator. How did you start as a kid? Do you have any advice? First off, this is awesome. Whoever's 9-year-old this is, that's so great. That's so awesome. I was always, that's really good. I was always drawing as a kid. I think even just being here and asking this question, it's clear you're an extremely supportive parent, and that's fantastic. I was also lucky enough to grow up in a house full of interesting animation because my dad was a big fan of animation. So I grew up watching old Looney Tunes and Fleischer Superman and NFB Canadian shorts and anime. Like, there was so much at my fingertips. And he had a copy of Chuck Jones's book, and I read it when I was a kid because it was just around. So if this is something that your child is into, there's so many beautiful resources that you could put there for them. But also just, I think the encouragement is everything. And my parents would also let me draw everywhere, at any restaurant. And whenever we were out, I was constantly drawing, and they never told me to stop, and I'm really grateful for that. So how far back in terms of personal experience do you look to for story inspiration? This one's interesting. I think of Steven Universe as being a snapshot of when I was a tween, like 13, 14, and my brother, who was 3 years younger than me, was around 10. That's the original series is really about that time when I was having my difficult teenage growing pains, and he was this happy-go-lucky kid that looked up to me. That's really the era of the show or the era of my life that I reference with the show. But I pull also from the present often, how it feels to be working on the show. And I just pull from anything that I recall being impactful. I heard this about The Simpsons, like Matt Groening would pull from every bit of his childhood and have these vivid memories of the way that he was and put a lot of that into Bart. I think, when stories are really specific, that's when they're exciting to me. So I always try to deep dive as often as possible into anything that's stuck with me, because that's how I feel I can make stories that will stick with my audience. Let's see. When you're creating very interconnected and very complex story arcs over long timelines, how do you stay true to your vision? and decide how to best reveal your story. This I do with charts. I really would love to show you all these charts. We write a lot of stuff on a big whiteboard, but when we really feel like things are gelling, I'll make a chart that shows what beats are happening when. So it'll be like, this is when they go to space, this is when Lars is pink, this is when Steven goes through his head, this is like, all the way up through change your mind, like that's one of the charts. And the details will sometimes change, or something that was going to happen over here will end up happening here as we discuss it. But what I like to do is, not only do I make these charts, but I give them to everyone on the production, so everybody knows what's going on, the designers, the timers, the directors, the board artists. A single episode is done by a board artist team. So by making these charts, everyone knows, even if it's not their episode, what's going to be happening over the course of a season. So when we discuss, we all know what we're talking about. So yeah, I make charts. Actually, there will be an art book in the future that's going to talk about the whole sort of arc of through Change Your Mind, and even eventually through Future, and that's going to have these charts in it. So I hope you'll check them out. This is a good question. How long did it take Spinell to arrive at Steven's house? Not very long. He got there really fast. I would like to mention that they have technology that will take you from one planet to another instantaneously, so that definitely helped. So she definitely warped. I mean, the only reason she hadn't gotten on that warp and gone somewhere instantly is because she hadn't realized that she should just go somewhere else. So once she realized that she had really absolutely no good reason to be staying there, she immediately left. Oh yeah, this is a big one. In Steven Universe, we've only seen gems that are synthetically made through kindergartens. Is there a faction of gems that naturally occur, as if nature formed them instead of a machine? This is a really good question. We've alluded to it in many, many different ways, that gems are technology. They are made, so there aren't any that occur naturally, and they're able to self-replicate. They make more and more of themselves. So yes, they're technology. This is really good. Will Jasper make another appearance? The answer to this is yes. I like this one. So, assuming it isn't covered in Steven Universe Future, will a key to the gem language ever eventually be released? This is really great. The keeper of the key to the gem language is my brother, the real Steven, who is the only person he's the one who knows how to write it. And he did all of the glyphs for the book in the beginning of the movie. He's the one who really knows it. So it's really up to him if he's ever going to share the secret of this with the world. I'll ask him. I'll tell him you asked. Let's see. We know now that Steven Universe is ending with the Future series. Are there any plans to continue telling stories in this world after the last episode of Future? This is a really great question. I love this world and I love these characters, and even if they may not continue in the form of a television show, I definitely am not done with this world and these characters. This is lovely. With all of the songs that you have written, which song are you connected to the most? This is definitely Love Like You, the credits song from the original series. Love Like You is such a special song to me because I wrote it over. I talked about this at New York Comic Con, so if any of you were there, I'm going to say the same thing twice. I wrote that over several years, which was such an unusual way to write a song. And when I started it, my theory was, this is going to sound like this sort of sweet, introspective song, but the secret is that this character is actually just an alien who just has no idea how to relate to people, and that's this, undercurrent of this, this person who doesn't understand how love works. And then while I was writing this song, that's when we started the show. I wrote the first lyrics, and then we were writing them as the credits went on. So like a year or so later, we started writing the middle, and at that point I was really having a difficult time keeping my head above water with the show. And the lyrics in the middle became a very self-deprecating reflection of how I was feeling at that time. And then years later, when we were then finishing the song, and it was returning to the original lyrics at the beginning, I realized that the thing I'd written at the start was not an alien concept at all. It was that it was extremely difficult for me to maintain relationships with the people I loved when I felt so awfully about myself, and that was so much more human than anything else I had been writing in the show. And with that understanding, I finished the song, but it took 3 or 4 years to write. And that, I don't know if I'll ever write a song over that many years before, and I certainly will never write a song over that particular revelation, so it's very special to me. Now that the Pink Diamond reveal has happened and we've seen all the diamond forms and voices, do you think that the experience for new viewers will be different than that for those who saw it as a weekly / hiatus-y? Yes, I think so. Well, at a certain point, as we were writing episodes, early on it was actually very difficult to campaign for the show to have an ongoing narrative like that. That was not really something that the channel was able to, like, that made sense for the channel, but it was something that we all really wanted to make. So when we started to do very serialized stories that were very obviously very serialized stories, we realized pretty quickly that we would just have no control over how those were aired, or if they aired in the sequence. I mean, well, we would fight for them to be aired at least in the sequence that we wanted, but if they would have large gaps. They did something called the Summer of Stephen, where they aired 20 of our episodes all in one go, and that I felt like all the blood was draining out of my body. Like, I took a really long time to make all of those episodes, and then all of a sudden there's nothing. One thing I would like to clarify is that when there are hiatuses, we're not working. I've been working pretty much nonstop on the show since I was 25, and when you do something like air an episode every night for 20 episodes, all of a sudden, a year's worth of work is out, and then there's a big gap. So I'm really, really, really happy that now people can watch the show without long pauses between these arcs, because at a certain point we were just like, let's just make it so that let's just make a story, let's just make it so that it works when you watch it, and hope for the best. And then after I was like, let's make a movie, because then you'll just sit down and watch it and it'll be exactly what it is. That would be great. But I also I feel really fondly about and really grateful to the people that did watch it through all of that and know what that meant, and I can assure you that we were going through it also in our own way, and we were there with you in how strange that was. What were your influences for Spinell's character? There are many different influences for Spinell. Mainly, there's cartoons from the 30s, Rubber Hose cartoons I was very excited to reference. I particularly wanted to pay homage to Grim Natwick's Betty Boop drawings, which are so cool. I love Mysterious Moe's in particular. There's a part that's a reference to Busy Dishes, which is in very early Betty Boop cartoons, she's a dog. Have you ever seen the really cool dog Betty Boops? I really like the way that stuff looks, and I love the way those cartoons, the way that they're entertaining is so strange, because it was a time when something just moving around, like, that was enough. That was so exciting. Like, oh, it's coming towards you, and now it's moving away. Like, that's it. That was entertainment. It's really good. I love that. I love how strange those cartoons are. But I actually had a not necessarily a chart, but like a big image board of different cartoons that she was supposed to be based on, with different cartoons and toys and all of these different ideas, all kind of mixed together. Mostly Fleischer. Obviously, there's a little Mickey going on, and Oswald, which I'm so glad that everybody sees the Mickey Oswald situation. But she was also based off of a stuffed animal that I had, this rabbit that I left in, a stuffed rabbit that I left in a garden when I was a kid, and then ultimately found, and yeah, it was sun damaged. So she was based on that as well. But I was really excited to do an old style cartoon, and to have that be part of who she is as a person. What really excited me about the movie was getting to show how positive relationships in your life can help you grow, but a negative relationship can hold you back from growth. And to be able to say that, and to say that in the language of animation, that this character did not get to evolve from being an old cartoon because she was held back by someone, that was really, really exciting to me. Oh, whose work would you have on a syllabus as assigned reading, watching, listening if you taught a storytelling 101 course for aspiring artists?
I like that.
I would say for this, I would assign your favorite movie, book, and song. I feel like if you love something, there must be a reason, and it's really exciting to me to return to the things that made a big impact on me now as a showrunner, and look at those stories and be like, what gripped me about this? So I would say search yourself for your favorite thing and start immediately analyzing what it is that you like so much about it. I used to think, this is not reading, watching, or listening, but I used to think a lot about Ocarina of Time. Because I noticed I don't mean to throw any shade at Twilight Princess, but when I played it, I noticed that, people sort of tell you, oh, Ganon is a problem. In Ocarina of Time, he kicks you in the face when you're a child. Like, you know immediately that this is a negative force in this game. It's not hearsay, it happens. That really stuck with me, and I would think about things like that a lot. Why did that really feel like it worked, and why did I feel like personally harmed by this character? So it's, if there's anything like that you're like, wow, I really loved this, but this didn't do it as much for me. Just break that down. That's your own very own storytelling 101. I won't,
Come teach at Hunter.
What are all the rose quartz gems and humans from the zoo up to? Please watch Steven Universe Future. How did you get connected with Christine Emerstole? Was that Patti LuPone, or had you known about her? When I was looking, it was so difficult to try and find a voice for White Diamond. She's such a critical character. And I had the opportunity to see Patti LuPone and Christine Emerstole when they were in War Paint together, and I went, oh my gosh, this is great. And their dynamic made a lot of sense, and I got to visit Patti LuPone backstage afterwards, and I was chatting with her and Christine, and I was really excited to work with both of them. So it was not directly through Patti LuPone, but I was aware of her because they were in a show together, and then ultimately got to see them perform, and it was just awesome. And Christine is a genius, so I'm very grateful that she worked with us on the show. Let's see. What are your thoughts as you were developing Pink's character more in the movie? Did you plan on having fans upset towards her actions regarding Spinel? Well, of course. Right? The thing is that this is something that we all on the staff know about Pink. She's done this before. She did something very similar to Bismuth. This is a thing that she does. So I am very glad that people have a more full understanding of her and can look at things that she's done through that lens, because it's very tracked. Let's see. What happened to the pearl thought to have belonged to White to turn pink? But if she is Pink's original pearl, why was she taken, and why is her eye broken? Please watch Steven Universe Feature.
I love it when she answers that. It's the best.
This is the last one. What do you think is the most important lesson of Steven Universe? That's a big question.
Wow.
The thing I hope is expressed the most through Steven Universe is that marginalized children exist, they deserve to exist, and they deserve to express themselves.
And I'm gonna cry.
They also deserve funny, wonderful cartoons, and they deserve to make funny, wonderful cartoons. They deserve to be kids. So thank you so much. And I really sincerely hope that you enjoy the book. I was so glad to be working with Ellie Metallica and with Andy Wang. They're both absolutely brilliant illustrators, and I'm really happy with how this one came out, so I hope that you like
it. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up, please. Your wonderful seats for a few moments. We'll get you on stage row by row for the photo opportunity. Hang tight.